The producer's ambition, Berle's desire for respect and Ruth's gentle worry. The domestic scene that unfolds inside the Berle household before Lucy Carmichael's arrival is one of the most delicately observed passages in the entire composite episode, a quiet interlude that reveals the emotional architecture supporting Milton Berle's restless professional hunger. Ruth, addressed first as Rose in the affectionate shorthand of long marriage, moves through the morning with the practiced concern of a woman who has spent years watching her husband chase the next version of himself. Her opening inquiry is simple and practical: did that secretary get here yet? The negative reply is met not with impatience but with a gentle redirect toward the most basic human need. While you're waiting for her to come, yeah, I wish you'd eat some breakfast, honey. Berle's response is the classic deflection of the driven man. I'm too busy, I'm working on the budget for the picture. The exchange is ordinary on its surface, yet it carries the accumulated weight of countless similar mornings. Ruth has seen this pattern before: nights of work stretching into days, meals postponed, rest deferred, and her next line carries both love and quiet exasperation. Well, you shouldn't be too busy to eat, huh? You've been working night and day. What are you trying to prove? Berle's answer is the manifesto of a performer who has begun to feel the limitations of his own legend. Oh, I happen to love show business, and I want to make good, yeah. The repetition of make good is telling. It is the language of a man who has already made good by any reasonable standard and yet still feels the need to prove himself anew. Ruth's reply is both affectionate and gently incredulous. Are you kidding? You've had a very successful career. What as a comedian? The word comedian lands with a particular force. In the cultural hierarchy of the mid-1960s, comedy, for all its popularity and profitability, still occupied a slightly lower rung than dramatic film production. Berle had been Mr. Television, the man whose presence could empty the streets on a Tuesday night, yet the very success that made him a household name had also locked him into a persona he now wished to transcend. His next speech is one of the most revealing character moments in the script. Well, Ruth, when a man matures, he wants the kind of success that brings respect. I mean, when you meet people today and you talk about Berle, what's the best thing they can say about him? He's funny. He's funny. He's funny. Well, I'm out to prove that Berle is not funny. The triple repetition of he's funny is both comic and quietly devastating. It captures the frustration of a performer who has become so identified with laughter that the laughter itself has begun to feel like a cage. Berle is not rejecting comedy. He is rejecting the idea that comedy is all he is allowed to be. The desire for the kind of success that brings respect is a mid-century male anxiety rendered with surprising tenderness. In an era when the boundaries between high and popular culture were still rigidly policed, the transition from television clown to motion picture producer represented a bid for a different kind of legitimacy. Ruth's immediate reaction is protective rather than critical. That's not a nice thing to say. Berle's clarification: I didn't say anything that's what hurts. You love me too much to say it, is a moment of genuine emotional insight. He understands that Ruth's love prevents her from voicing the very doubt he himself carries. Her affirmation is absolute. Of course I love you, that's why I hate to see you working so hard, taking out all this hard work. The phrase taking out all this hard work is the language of a woman who measures success not in critical respect but in the continued presence and health of the man she married. Berle's attempt to deflect "oh Ruth, don't" is met with Ruth's quiet inventory of his already substantial achievements. Seems to me, you've had enough success in show business to satisfy anyone. I mean, vaudeville, movies, television, nightclubs. Why do you want to be a producer? The list is itself a miniature history of American entertainment in the 20th century. Vaudeville, the cradle of so many comic careers. Movies, the dream factory. Television, the medium that made Berle a national figure. Nightclubs, the late-night proving ground. Ruth is not dismissing his ambition, she is asking him to recognize the fullness of the life he has already lived. Berle's answer is both simple and profound. Don't you understand, Ruth dear? I want to grow. The verb grow carries a weight far beyond career advancement. It is the language of a man who feels the passage of time and the narrowing of possibilities, who senses that remaining only funny would be a form of emotional stasis. Ruth's final rejoinder, well, then you ought to stop smoking, I would, is pure sitcom grace under pressure. She does not argue further, She simply folds the larger existential question back into the intimate practical concern of a wife who still wants her husband to live long enough to enjoy whatever growth he achieves. What makes this scene so effective is the way it resists the temptation to turn Berle into a figure of pure comic vanity. The script allows him genuine dignity even as it gently satirizes the restlessness that drives him. Lucille Ball's series had always excelled at this kind of balanced characterization. Supporting players were rarely reduced to mere straight men or comic foils. They were given interior lives that made their collisions with Lucy's chaos all the more resonant. Berle's desire for respect is not mocked, it is understood as a deeply human impulse. At the same time, Ruth's worry is never presented as mere nagging. She is the emotional ballast of the household, the person who remembers that budgets and schedules, and professional ambitions still have to coexist with the simple necessity of eating breakfast. The historical context deepens the moment further. By the mid-1960s, Milton Berle's television reign had ended, and the industry itself was shifting. The big variety shows that had defined the medium's first decade were giving way to situation comedies, westerns, and the early stirrings of the more socially conscious programming that would dominate the next decade. For a performer whose identity had been forged in the live high-wire atmosphere of early television, the move into film production represented both an opportunity and a risk. The script captures that tension without ever becoming heavy-handed. Berle's declaration that he is out to prove that Berle is not funny is both absurd and oddly courageous. It is the kind of self-reinvention that American culture has always claimed to admire, even as it quietly punishes those who attempt it too late or too publicly. Ruth's role in this dynamic is equally nuanced. She is not the long-suffering wife of comedy tradition. She is an active participant in the marriage who happens to measure success differently. Her concern for Berle's health and her gentle reminders of past achievements form a quiet counter-argument to the relentless forward motion of show business ambition. When she says you've had enough success in show business to satisfy anyone, she is not asking him to stop. She is asking him to recognize that the respect he seeks may already be present in the love and loyalty that surround him. The fact that Berle cannot fully hear this message is part of what makes the scene so affecting. He is a man standing at a professional crossroads, unable to rest in the accomplishments of the past, because the future still feels like an open question. The arrival of Lucy Carmichael will shortly explode this quiet domestic tension into full comic chaos, but the scene that precedes her entrance is essential to the episode's emotional architecture. Without Ruth's gentle worry and Berle's restless ambition, Lucy's later misunderstandings would lack the deeper resonance that elevates them beyond pure slapstick. The audience needs to understand that Berle is not merely a celebrity figure of fun, he is a man trying, however, awkwardly, to grow beyond the persona that made him famous. Ruth is not merely the patient spouse, she is the person who loves him enough to question the cost of that growth. Their brief morning conversation conducted while waiting for a temporary secretary who will soon turn their household upside down is a master class in the kind of character-driven comedy that the Lucy Show at its best always delivered. It reminds us that even in a series built on physical mayhem and elaborate schemes, the most memorable moments often begin in the quiet spaces between two people who know each other too well to need elaborate explanations. Berle wants respect. Ruth wants her husband whole. Between those two desires lies the entire human comedy that Lucy Carmichael is about to enter, coat in hand and heart already racing with the pure, unfiltered enthusiasm that will both complicate and in its own chaotic way affirm the very chaotic growth Berle is seeking. The scene also functions as a subtle commentary on the gendered division of emotional labor in mid-century American marriages. Ruth's attention to breakfast, to health, to the simple continuity of daily life stands in quiet contrast to Berle's focus on budgets, scripts, and the abstract pursuit of respect. Neither position is presented as superior, both are necessary. The comedy will later arise from the collision of Lucy's chaotic energy with this carefully balanced domestic system. But the system itself is drawn with care and affection. When Ruth finally leaves for her shopping, her parting instruction, "Don't spend too much money, honey," is both practical and tender. She is entrusting the household to her husband's care for a few hours, unaware that the temporary secretary about to arrive will interpret every professional interaction through the lens of lifelong fandom and will ultimately mistake a scripted love scene for a genuine betrayal. The groundwork for that later misunderstanding is laid here in the quiet tension between a man who wants to be taken seriously and a woman who already takes him seriously enough to worry about whether he has eaten his breakfast. In the larger tapestry of The Lucy Show, this sequence stands as a reminder that the series was never solely about Lucille Ball's extraordinary physical gifts. It was also about the world she disrupted, the ordinary households, the professional ambitions, the long marriages, and the way that disruption, however chaotic, often left those worlds slightly more honest than it found them. Berle's desire to prove he is not funny will soon be tested by a secretary who finds everything he does hilarious. Ruth's gentle worry will soon be tested by a misunderstanding that seems to confirm her deepest fears. And through it all, the audience is invited to recognize that the hunger for respect and the hunger for connection are not opposing forces but two sides of the same human need. That recognition, delivered with the lightest of comic touches, is what gives the scene its lasting power. It is comedy that understands its characters well enough to let them be both absurd and deeply recognizably human.